Welcome to the Church Resource, where we talk about the best resources for pastors, leaders, and lay people. Jeff Oliver here, and looking at the book today, Recovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood. The subtitle is A Response to Evangelical Feminism. This was written by John Piper and Wayne Grudem and has been updated since this printing, but I really appreciate this book, and it helped me to just get a bearing on some of the issues that were coming up then in terms of feminism and as it says, biblical manhood and womanhood, but also even today that I can look back at this and understand some of the issues that are going on and how to look at this issue or these issues biblically, and to understand them not as our culture would have us to look at them necessarily, or sociologists or psychologists even, but how we should look at these things biblically, and why the truth of the Bible holds up in every culture, and why it ought to be, in fact, defended against this wave and really overwhelming sometimes of evangelical, especially evangelical, not just cultural feminism. So let me tell you some of the table of contents here, and I just really enjoyed looking over this book again as I read it decades ago, but this is a vision of biblical complementarity that begins the book, and then kind of an overview. There are chapters on women and the life and teachings of Jesus. There are chapters on some very specific things, like about women being silent in the church, the role of women in 1 Corinthians 14. There are chapters here about wives like Sarah and the women who honor them, as we see in 1 Peter. We have about the church and family, what male leadership in the home means to male leadership in the church, and how they relate, how they compare to each other, and what the importance is of really male headship in each of those places in a family's life. And then some kind of practical chapters here. We've looked at the theology of the issues, but also church history, biology, psychology, sociology, law, how those things are affected by the perspective that you come from, the worldview of biblical manhood and womanhood. I think this is so important for us to look at and as the book title suggests, to reclaim, to recover these ideas of biblical manhood and womanhood. Let me just give the little note here that the authors give at the beginning. It says, how to use this book. So it says, we do not expect that many people will read a book of this length from cover to cover. This book is arranged so people can read first the chapters that interest them most. So one chapter does not build on the previous chapters. And those interested in discussion of specific biblical texts can turn to those chapters that I mentioned before, some of those biblical theological perspectives. Also, you can look at specialized studies that will include biology and psychology, sociology, and how biblical manhood and womanhood relate to those. And he says, they say that, if you would look at that in that way and look up the specific issues that you're dealing with, that's really how to use this book. And then there's a response, a statement that's issued by the Christians for Biblical Equality. This book also includes the famous Danvers statement that helps to really provide a foundation, a document that we can go back to and say, this is what we believe, this is where we stand, and even hopefully this is why we stand there. So some of the excerpts from the book that I'll just mention here as I drop the book, but it's just giving you some ideas of what kind of issues that you might deal with in the church, in culture, and trying to stand for biblical truth. At the beginning, I appreciate John Piper's foreword here is titled For Single Men and Women and the Rest of Us. So he gives really a defense for singleness. If someone is called to singleness for life, or maybe just for this period of life and for an extended time, what we might think past the normal or usual marrying age, whatever that might be, he gives a good defense of that. And so what unique position that single people have, and what opportunities they have to serve in the kingdom of God, in the church, and that someone is not incomplete just because they do not have a spouse. And so I love that perspective that Piper brings here, and just wanted to point that out. It's a really great part of the book. I mentioned the kind of theological and biblical chapters here, one of those being head coverings, prophecies, and the Trinity, looking at 1 Corinthians 11, 2 through 16. And this is really a well-done, thorough exposition of that passage and an explanation and understanding of what that means and what it meant to the readers, and then also what it means to us today, how we use that principle then to come across the bridge, as they say, to understand what we believe and what we the issues that we see here today related to that. So that's one of the examples of a chapter that's in here that's very theological and biblical, almost a sermon about that issue, and I think that's so well done. Also, there's a lesson in here, a chapter on the valuable ministries of women in the context of male leadership, a survey of Old and New Testament examples and teaching. And again, very thoroughly done, very well laid out and organized, that we look at, yes, that women are not sidelined. They're not less than, that they're of equal value and honor, respect that's due to them. It's just kind of limits who they can teach, who they can hold authority over. And so there are valuable ministries that women have, and they're going to, in fact, Thomas Schreiner is the author of this particular chapter, and is going to outline that and highlight what women can do and why it's important that we have some of those distinctions in ministry. And one last thing that I will share with you here about the book is that the Danvers statement is there. This was developed by the Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood. It starts out with a rationale for this statement, also the purposes of the statement, and some affirmations. Based on our understanding of biblical teachings, we affirm such things as that Adam and Eve were created in God's image, equal before God as persons, and distinct in their manhood and womanhood. What a great foundation, a beginning for this kind of statement that yes, we do have two people, one male, one female, and both created in God's image, both equal before God. And that's where we start. And then, it goes down through the kind of issues and really truths that we know from the Bible about the distinctions, the strengths of being a man, of being a woman, and in complementing each other in our roles, our God-given, God-assigned roles. There is, I think, an important part of this book as well, that as we come to the end of the Danvers statement, that there are council members whose names are here and their credentials, and you can see the people who have signed off on this book, and there's a board of reference as well. Lots of notes in this book, and so you can go back and see who wrote what and what their thoughts are, what books that you might want to pick up next on these topics. And if you'd like to read further, I think it's a great place for you to spend some time studying and understanding, because you know what, these issues come up in the life of a church, and no matter what size church you're in, you think maybe it's just in the cosmopolitan mega churches that you would have these issues and have to struggle with those. That's not the case, and you probably, if you've been a pastor more than 2 weeks, you probably know that. So just letting you know that this is a great place to find some of those answers and some of the help, really, as you minister well. And this is not so we can, figuratively beat somebody over the head with the Bible, but so we can come graciously and in an understanding way to help people understand this is really the biblical way that we want to approach this. And, of course, an author index as well. So just some of the helps that are available in this book. I highly recommend this as you continue to develop a theology of biblical manhood and womanhood, and look at these issues that really will come up all the time. And even in your newspaper and news reading, if that newspaper reference is dated, in your reading and understanding of our culture, they will come back many times to talk about this biblical perspective as just being outdated and cretin and any of the other terms that might be used. But this is where we stand on the Bible. and the truth that is in there. So it is Recovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, a response to evangelical feminism, written by John Piper and Wayne Grudem. Highly recommend this, and I hope you will pick that up. It's just one book that's on my shelf that's helped me in my ministry, and I hope it will help you as you effectively minister to those people who are in your care. Well, if you have any questions, any suggestions of resources that you'd like us to take a look at, please do email us at thechurchresource@gmail.com. That's thechurchresource@gmail.com.